Welcome to the Future of Field Service podcast. I'm your host, Sarah Nicastro. Today, I'm welcoming to the podcast Nicola Buckley, Executive Vice President at Park Place Technologies. Park Place Technologies has not only survived the COVID-19 challenges, but has thrived as a business during the crisis. Today, Nicola is going to share with us 3 tactics that were critical in allowing the company to accomplish that. Nicola, thank you so much for being here with us today. I'm very excited for the conversation. So before we dive into talking about how Park Place has not only survived but thrived during COVID-19, can you tell us a bit more about Park Place Technologies, your role, and anything the listeners should know before we get into your story?
Absolutely. Thank you, Sarah. It's a pleasure to be here. And thank you, Emily. So my name is Nicola Buckley. I'm Executive Vice President for Global Service Delivery in Park Place Technologies. Park Place itself has been around since 1991. I've been here for about 2.5 years. We're focused on delivering hardware maintenance in large data center environments. So right now we're hitting on 18,000 customers across the world, across the globe, in about 58,000 data centers, supporting roughly 150 countries.
Awesome. Thank you. So Nicola and I recently connected to work on an article that we published on Future of Field Service, and I was really taken with your story because I think, it's interesting to talk with someone whose business, isn't just surviving but thriving, as I said. But what's more interesting is that there are some really specific reasons for that. It's not by chance, it's certainly by effort. And we discussed 3 particular tactics that were key to the way you've been able to manage all of this and even grow. So the first of those is that Park Place had a business continuity plan in place. And I'm hoping you can start by telling us a bit about that plan and what it entailed, and why you think that was so important in helping you guys as this all began.
Yeah, absolutely. So yes, we as an organization made the decision to create a business continuity plan a couple of years ago. And quite transparently, viewpoint was probably more focused on an IT compromise more than anything else. But the team of leaders, and I'll take zero credit for this, that put that plan together, did in fact think about multiple scenarios, not just IT compromise. And one of those scenarios was pandemic. And I myself, and I remember chuckling with you, Sarah, when we talked about this, thought we'll never have to exercise, a BCP plan for a pandemic. And here we are in 2020. So the team had the foresight to think about not only your typical IT compromise, but other scenarios. And with that then, the plan was created, documented. We then implemented the plan in a test mode multiple times. So we executed the plan in a test scenario across the company, across the globe. So it wasn't unusual, it wasn't uncomfortable even for the team as we started to understand what COVID was bringing to the table. We were observing the situation in APAC from about early February. I would say by mid-February, we had a task force for COVID specifically, and that was led by the BCP leadership team. And by March 16th, we had pivoted to 100% remote work. And Park Place is an organization that's very open about our preference to be in the office. So again, that could have been very bumpy, but because we'd exercised the plan in action multiple times in test scenarios, it wasn't unusual. It's a stressful environment we're in general, but this did not add stress to our team members, which was excellent.
Yeah, and I think that's a really important point to emphasize is it wasn't just a matter of having the plan,
right,
and having it on a drive somewhere sitting there, and having done the thinking behind it, but you practiced it. You really, multiple times made sure that you had efforts to make sure everyone was familiar with it, knew how to act upon it, so that, it wasn't just a document sitting somewhere. It was something that people, knew what to do with when it came time to put it into action. So I know, retrospectively, companies that are amidst this crisis that didn't have a business continuity plan, I don't know how much creating one will help them now, but I do think that it's important to consider, going forward, because obviously, even though we might think something like a global pandemic will never happen and we'll never need to use it, here we are. So what is your advice for folks on, important considerations for creating and familiarizing a business continuity plan?
Yeah, that's a great question, Sarah. So, I have to put all the credit in the consistency and the execution of this plan to the people that we picked to build the plan to start with. So we created a cross-functional team of leaders that wear other hats. The BCP lead is a lady by the name of Jan Taylor. She sits out just outside of San Diego. Her day job is Vice President of Service Delivery for the West Coast, which is a busy job to have. Betsy Dillinger, who is our General Counsel and Head of HR. We had Adam Heaney, who is a business process owner, and Loretta Brady, who's a quality assurance lead. So they brought very different points of view, and they built mini teams and mini task force to contribute to the plan. But that really gave the plan depth, and it made it, really 360-degree view on the scenarios. And again, we had a pandemic as a scenario as a result. The second piece was execution of the plan in test mode. So we actually, not only did we socialize it, we did it via our online learning management system, which was a great idea. We deliver training on that system all the time. It's probably focused more on process and technical training. The team decided, no, we will create BCP training. We will put it in our online learning management system, which we internally call Uptime Academy, mandate the training, and send gentle reminders to the team that hadn't consumed the training within a certain period of time until we had 100% consumption. So again, it wasn't a check the box exercise. We really took it to heart and took it seriously and made sure that our team members understood what it meant for them.
Yeah, good. So the next key area is the use of technology. And so Park Place had a very strong technological foundation in place. And you've been able to fall back on that as this crisis has unfolded. So tell us a bit about your digital first approach and how that was sort of in place prior to COVID-19 occurring.
Yeah, so that again was something that was by plan. We, as an organization, grew up with a very strong field engineering workforce. But as you scale and you grow as an organization, you need to be able to, optimize that workload and that growth and start to use digital infrastructure to deliver on that service capability, not only for internal benefits, but mostly for our customer experience. We're very focused on our customers. We're a culture based on people, and our customers are part of that. So it's our job, and we take this very seriously, to remove any complexity from engaging with us for our customers. It needs to be consistent, easy, choice. We like to deliver choice and personalization. So after deploying Alliance and standardizing on Alliance as our platform across the globe, we started a program called Easter, which really started the journey of our digital first capability. We built a customer portal called Central Park that sits on top of Alliance, and that allows our customers to very simply log service events, change their contracts, add assets, drop assets. They can change who their contact administrators are, look at who their escalation paths are. So it's a very, very simple interface, but makes it very simple for our customers, high value, low effort to engage with us. And then on top of that, and this definitely did benefit us as we started to work remotely and our customers started to work remotely, we created a mobile app, PP Tech Mobile, which is the portal in your pocket. So you can do all of those same things on a mobile app. And we've seen adoption of that grow over the last number of weeks because customers are in a mobile situation or working from home. We also have a remote monitoring hardware product called Park View. And again, that's integrated with our customer portal. We call our portal our entry point, our single pane of glass. Our customers can get everything from that portal, including hardware monitoring capability, which remotely monitors hardware, proactively identifies any faults, automatically creates a ticket. We send a field engineer, we send parts to the site, more often than not without our customer even realizing that they've had an issue in the first place. And we have less customers in data centers these days because of COVID-19. So for us to be able to tell them, you've got an issue, we've got you covered, you don't need to worry, it's just taking a lot of stress out of the situation for our customers. So ahead of COVID-19, it was our plan to have this capability and continues to be, and we will iterate and we will constantly deliver new capabilities and new value-added services. But during COVID-19 and the pandemic, it certainly has proven another use case of why you do need to focus on building digital capability in your service delivery environment.
Absolutely. So very good point, and I think that companies that were already on a digital path have been able to really, ramp up those efforts and rely on those tools during this time. And companies that weren't, I think, are really, really seeing the criticality of this adoption, and they're really, it's lowering the resistance to change because those organizations are realizing that, they need to get on board. So let's talk in a little bit more detail, particularly about PP Tech Mobile and Parkview, about how you already have those. So they're not new offerings since COVID-19 began, but they've really put you in a position of strength as this crisis has unfolded, and by giving your customers options as working conditions have changed. So can you just talk a little bit more about each of those and how you've sort of seen them benefit your customer base, benefit Park Place, and increase, in use and adoption as this started?
Yeah, absolutely. So, as I mentioned at the top of the conversation, we provide hardware maintenance on, multiple OEM products, thousands of products, hundreds of OEMs. So we don't create those products. We're not a manufacturer. We're a service delivery organization. So again, our focus is always on allowing our customers choice and the room to make the right decisions for themselves, and give them a very simple entry point into how they gain access to our services. So both PP Tech Mobile and Parkview are agnostic to the product. They can support Dell, EMC, IBM, HP. So we're allowing our customers the opportunity to consolidate how they manage their very complicated data center environments using very, very simple tools. That takes a lot of the stress and worry out of managing those environments. We're almost like staff augmentation in some respects. We will do that work for you to give you the opportunity to think about how you're going to manage your business going forward. The new normal is unknown to a lot of people. Budgets are getting squeezed. New decisions are having to be made. And we're seeing this in Park Place ourselves. We're making decisions that are different than we originally planned in January to make sure that we're continuing to drive success into the platform. So what we want to do is make sure our customers don't have to worry about risk or issues in their data centers. They can engage with us themselves using the mobile app very, very simply. They can adopt Parkview and allow machine monitoring to engage on their behalf automatically. And again, they're not worrying about maintenance of their data center. They're thinking about how they navigate New World Order with this pandemic environment upon us.
Yeah, and you've seen increased adoption of both of those solutions, and I know no one has a crystal ball, so I'm not asking you for definitive answers. But what is your perception, Nicola, on how customers' adoption of your e-services and digital tools will evolve in a post-COVID world? How do you think the impact will kind of continue?
Yeah, we're starting to see a new behavior, customers, and, we're all customers, right, at the end of the day. So if something isn't pressing or isn't a priority, but it's embraced, it takes longer to get adopted, right? These capabilities became pressing. They were already embraced. They made sense, but they became pressing. So we're seeing adoption jump significantly. Our customers are seeing the benefit. And although our core competency is hardware maintenance, we're also growing up the stack in the data center. We have a strategy called DMSO, Discover, Monitor, Support, Optimize. And that means that by having hardware monitoring or having the agent monitoring your asset, we can then move up the stack, monitor your server, monitor your application, and eventually monitor your database across networks, servers, and storage. So again, customers are realizing they have multiple tools, multiple manufacturers in their environment. It's confusing. They have different teams supporting different aspects of the data center. Our goal is to consolidate the management of the entire data center from hardware all the way up to application. Allow our customers to invest their time and their resources into executing on their strategy, but by ensuring that the maintenance aspect of their organization is not, part of their day job that is in the trusted hands of Park Place.
Yeah, I think the point you made is a good one, that we're all customers, right? And some of the evolution you're seeing within your customer base with the digital tools that you're providing them, we're seeing with companies that are leveraging digital tools with their field workforces.
Right.
So for instance, if you look at augmented reality, augmented reality, I've talked with numerous companies over the years that have deployed it. And it has a very strong value proposition, but there were still pockets of, I don't want to say resistance, but just kind of complacency. So to your point, it wasn't not embraced, but it wasn't critical.
Right.
And so the folks that weren't accustomed to those tools would just, in some instances, prefer to just keep doing things the way they had always done. Now it's become a necessary and critical tool for these companies to persist with delivering service to their customers. And therefore, employees that, may have resisted that change a bit in the past are embracing it. And I think that, that openness to looking at different tools, different systems, different services is something that I think will stick. I think people just kind of are going to be a bit more open-minded and a bit more willing to evolve and change. So, maybe that's a positive.
Yeah, exactly.
So the final area, the final tactic or key to your success during this time that we had discussed, and I think you guys deserve a lot of credit for this, because, very often companies get sort of, either stuck in their ways or just stuck in their own internal views. And so the final thing is how you've really made a concerted effort to look at how your customers' needs have changed since COVID-19 came into play, and really worked to be very flexible in changing internally to meet those needs. As you said earlier, to really make things simple and stress-free for them. So I'm hoping you can talk a bit about, how some of the ways that you've pivoted to be really flexible in meeting the needs of your customers.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and even for me, 2.5 years into Park Place, I came up from a much larger organization. And I was astounded from day one, the flexibility the leadership team has in meeting our customer needs. Now, we have to make the right choices for the company at the end of the day. But during this particular event is another example of that. Our head of sales, Ted Riepel, brought up with Betsy Dillinger, our general counsel, the topic on our executive staff meetings around our customers are having a hard time understanding what their budgets look like today and what they'll look like tomorrow. They still need maintenance. They still need people taking care of their data centers. We need to work with them on that. And very quickly, they put together a quick task force again and introduced contracts with shorter terms that allowed our customers to make those choices. Short-term engagement with Park Place, give them the opportunity to think longer term in terms of strategic decision making. And what we find a lot of the time actually is a customer in need short term becomes a very loyal customer long term. And we see that a lot. And like I say, I'm an engineer by discipline, but my passion is in the customer experience. And we lead with the voice of the customer. We have a very close relationship with all of our customers. We have a customer advisory board. We, in fact, for the e-services program, they prioritize a lot of the features for us. They tell us what they want, and we deliver in that order. So much like that, we spoke to our customers about what does it feel like, what does it look like in terms of their needs from a spend perspective today, without putting any, forcing any commitment on them. And that's really why we turned around these contracts that are very short term, as short as 3 months, to allow our customers to the headspace to make those longer term decisions.
Yeah, I think that's excellent. And I think that, I've talked with numerous people about the concept of, the way you treat your customers right now is something that's going to be remembered for a very long time. So to your point, would you typically offer 3-month contracts? Probably not. But if, being able to understand the difficult position that they're in and being flexible enough to make changes in the short term that will ultimately benefit you long term by creating that loyalty and building those relationships, I think is very smart. However, I think that, in a lot of organizations, I think that there is some real fear of introducing that level of flexibility. There's still some real hesitancy around that. So I'm just wondering if you have any kind of insight for folks on, how did you guys at Park Place kind of come together and one, work quickly and nimbly to introduce these new terms and these new offerings, but two, determine how flexible are you willing to be,
Right.
and what does that look like? So kind of the process behind making those decisions quickly, is there any advice you would share on that?
Yeah, we are hyper collaborative. So we talk as a team, as an entire organization, daily and multiple times a day. So the ability to easily gain access to a peer, especially now more than ever, remote or not, is incredible to the success of Park Place. We are very open-minded. We're okay to admit when decisions that have been made may not be optimal after a certain period of time. We'll pull back, we'll course correct, but we're hyper collaborative. We talk to each other a lot. As I said, Ted brought this suggestion to the table, quickly engage with Betsy. The turned around a product that we were able to deploy to the sales teams. We're keeping a very, very close eye on it to understand, are we putting ourselves in a position of compromise or not? So far not. Our chief finance officer is holding us accountable to make sure that we're not also. But I would say it boils down to being able to get on that video call, pick up the phone, call your peer, call your teammate with an idea, put together a good cross-functional team with varying inputs for anything that's new or might seem a bit unprecedented, to really test it out and then make the decision from there. So I put it down to the fact that we're just constantly communicating and collaborating.
Yeah. It's interesting when you kind of recap these 3 points, right? I mean, to talk about them, they sound fairly straightforward, right? But when you dig into them, they're not at all.
Right.
And I think that it's just a testament of, really being well prepared, recognizing the value that technology plays in a business today, and putting the customer's needs first, and finding ways to meet those needs. So they all sound simple, but quite frankly, to execute on those 3 things in the way that you have is no simple feat. And it's worked, right? I mean, you guys have, like I said earlier, not just weathered the storm, but you've actually grown, right. during this time. So I think that's incredible. 2 more questions for you, Nicola. The first is in summary of what we just talked about, is there any other words of wisdom you would share on, how to weather this storm, how to prepare for recovery, anything, any closing thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've all got a lot of time to think these days. I thought, the return to office scenario, for example, and again, Park Place have created a cross-functional team. They've been working that plan, I would think, for 4 weeks now, and we get weekly updates on what that plan looks like. We're global, so we're very aware that we need to align with government regulations in each of these locations that we're present in. We're not out of the woods, so, we've had daily executive leadership calls, daily team calls to make sure that people are feeling safe and protected. I think in the United States, people are starting to feel a bit better, and there's return to office scenarios being built out. Latin America are not in that position. So we're not forgetting about the other parts of the world that are continuing to be in a situation like this. So I suppose my point is, don't become complacent. Don't get too comfortable. Our BCP plan is going from, working remotely to how do we go back to the office? And oh, by the way, what if the virus peaks again? So we're not short-sighted. We're thinking about all the scenarios. We are really open-minded in terms of making sure that our leadership team across the globe are given the wherewithal to manage the business they need to. but we constantly communicate with each other. So it's communication, it's collaboration. Don't be short-sighted. Think about the what-if scenarios. Be able to quickly pivot again if we need to, and make sure that our team members understand every decision that we're making and why we're making that decision. Blanket communications without context can create concern, especially in an environment like this. So I definitely want to make sure that people really embrace the communication aspect now more than ever as we work remotely.
Yeah, there's a couple good points there. I mean, one is, like you said, kind of balancing the need to continue meeting present day needs, right? Continue evaluating what's going on today, how do we react, what do we need to do, while also thinking longer term. And the reality right now is that longer term is a bunch of what ifs, it's a bunch of how do we manage the unknowns? But you have to try, right? I mean, you have to run those scenarios. You have to think through the different different aspects of what could come and make sure that you're not caught off guard again and again and again, right?
Correct.
The other thing that's interesting that you said that I've had a few discussions on recently is how this situation has sped the pace of decision making.
Yeah.
And so not just in being flexible, but just, internally, to your point, perhaps at Park Place, you were already communicating every single day, but a lot of companies might be meeting weekly or every 2 weeks or monthly to kind of, look at data and make decisions. And that pace of decision making has sped to, having to be daily because the circumstances are changing every day.
Right.
So that's an important adjustment that people need to make. And if you fail to make that adjustment, you're going to miss a lot of important conversations and collaboration, to your point.
Yeah. And I do think, take the human element seriously too. So we've encouraged all of our teammates to have happy hours on, video meetings. We created a global Park Place cookbook. So our wonderful HR organization solicited for recipes from everybody across the globe. It was such an amazing product, and it got people excited. And you get to know people in a different way, and it just naturally takes the stress out of the situation. So we've been doing a lot of funky, cool stuff too that are keeping everybody happy, and engaged. And I would say a lot of us feel a lot more engaged now than we ever did because we have to put a lot more effort into keeping that relationship alive when you're not talking to them physically. So I think the connection points are feeling a lot more solid these days too.
Absolutely. I think that's really, the cookbook is a really cool idea. We were talking when we got on today about, we both have kids in the house, right? And so just, you can't keep those interactions at bay all of the time, but I think it's made us all seem more human to one another. And going back to positives, I think that's another positive out of a very unfortunate situation. Last question for you for today is, for you individually as a leader, what do you feel is the biggest lesson you've learned or the biggest way you feel changed as a result of leading through a crazy time like this?
Yeah, it's a great question. I'm so fortunate because I have an incredible team. I have a team that we consider each other family almost, and we're a global team. So my team represents a good size of Park Place. We're 450 of the 1,700 team members, or 1,300 team members, sorry. So we're cross-functional too, right? We're global, we're cross-functional. I meet with my team in Kuala Lumpur, in Uruguay, in Cork, Ireland, in Marlborough. So they all get along so well. And they know how to have fun with each other too, because it is very stressful. Service delivery is a stressful thing. You're not getting phone calls to say, thank you, my machine is working perfectly, I appreciate you. But everybody works very, very well together. And I like to interact with my team as a teammate. Leadership is incredibly important, but, making people feel comfortable with you, it's how you deliver and execute on a great team. I grew up playing team sports. I know exactly what I'm good at, and I know exactly what I'm not good at. And, being hyper aware of your strengths and how you build a team that complement your strengths and your opportunity areas, it really helps the team feel empowered. So I give stretch projects to team members a lot, and they execute and hit them out of the park. It's just making people feel valued and empowered, and everyone, works very well together in an environment like that for sure.
Yeah, that's great. And it sounds like you've done an excellent job of continuing to do that in a remote way and virtually leading that team and being a part of that team. So thank you, Nicola, so much for being here and for sharing today. I appreciate it. For more content on how companies are managing the challenges of COVID-19 and preparing for what comes next, visit us at www.futureoffieldservice.com. You can also find us on LinkedIn and Twitter at The Future of FS. The Future of Field Service podcast is published in partnership with IFS. You can learn more about IFS service management solutions by visiting ifs.com. And IFS is currently launching a thought leadership series of interactive, insightful content at mindfuel.ifs.com. Be sure to check that out. As always, thank you for listening.